When you focus on your own growth and value, you begin to shift the dynamic in any relationship. There's a powerful energy that comes from a woman who knows who she is, understands her worth, and doesn't feel the need to chase after anyone to validate her existence. Men, like anyone else, are naturally attracted to strength, confidence, and self-assurance. These are qualities that emanate from someone who is comfortable in their own skin, someone who is secure in their place in the world. When you constantly seek validation, especially from a man, you send the message that you are incomplete without his attention, his approval, or his presence. This is not an attractive position to be in. It's a position of neediness, and neediness is repelling. The more you chase someone, the more they sense that you're relying on them for your happiness and self-worth. It becomes a heavy burden for them because at the core, it's not about them, it's about you. You haven't yet realized that your happiness and fulfillment must come from within, not from another person. But when you begin to place value on yourself, when you start to invest in your own growth, something changes within you. You stop searching for external sources of validation, and instead, you start to feel fulfilled from within. You begin to take care of yourself, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. You engage in activities that nourish your soul and add value to your life. You stop waiting for someone else to complete you because you realize you were always whole. The truth is, no one can complete you if you haven't yet taken the time to complete yourself first. As you grow and evolve, you stop allowing people to treat you poorly. You stop tolerating behavior that doesn't align with your worth. You begin to demand respect not from a place of arrogance or entitlement, but from a deep understanding of who you are. Men notice this change. They begin to see you differently. No longer are you the woman who is desperate for attention. You are now the woman who commands respect, the woman who is focused on her own path, her own journey, and her own success. And when this shift occurs, the energy you radiate is magnetic. Men can sense it from miles away. They notice the subtle changes in the way you carry yourself, the way you speak, the way you move through life. You've become someone who doesn't need anyone to complete her, someone who is already complete on her own. This energy is both alluring and intimidating. The confidence you project becomes a mirror to the men who see you as something they once had but took for granted. They begin to realize that the woman who was once easy to access, the woman who was always available, is now a mystery. And this is where the magic happens. Men, just like anyone else, are drawn to what they can't have easily. The more you pull back, the more they begin to appreciate what they once took for granted. They start to miss the energy you brought into their lives, the sense of calm you gave them, the support you offered, the love you shared. They remember the woman who gave them space to be themselves without demanding anything in return. But now they notice that you are no longer there, and this absence sparks something in them. It's a sense of longing, a desire to re-enter your life. They return because they realize they lost something valuable, something they can't easily replace. In essence, the act of focusing on yourself and investing in your own growth doesn't just make you more attractive to a man, it makes you more attractive to life itself. When you become the best version of yourself, you don't just attract one person, you begin to attract opportunities, experiences, and people who are aligned with your energy. Your growth becomes the foundation of your power, and when men see this, they are drawn back, not because you've changed, but because you finally become the woman you were always meant to be. When you step away and create space, you invite a powerful transformation in both yourself and the relationship dynamic. Absence does not simply make the heart grow fonder, as the old saying suggests. In truth, absence allows the mind to come to terms with the value that was once overlooked. It's the silence between two people that gives them the opportunity to truly reflect on what they had, what was lost, and what is at stake. Often we think of absence as something that diminishes a connection, but in reality, it has the power to clarify feelings, bring perspective, and even rekindle what was once taken for granted. When you remove yourself from a situation, you don't just create physical space, you also create mental and emotional space. This space allows both parties the time and freedom to reflect, to step outside the current emotional landscape, and to view things more clearly. When you're constantly available, constantly present, there's little room for introspection. There's no chance for the person to miss you, to appreciate what you bring, and to understand that relationships require effort from both sides. But when you step back, you give them room to see the situation with new eyes without the distraction of your constant presence. In that space, a man begins to notice the absence of your energy. He feels the void left in your wake. What's truly remarkable is that the absence you create doesn't just bring longing, it brings clarity. Men are naturally driven by the need to fix things, to solve problems, and to regain what they've lost. When you create a gap by removing yourself, it sparks a natural desire to restore balance. The absence becomes the trigger that makes him reevaluate the relationship, to ask himself why he took you for granted and what he lost when you were no longer there. During this time, you may notice that the more you focus on yourself and grow, the more this absence becomes an invitation for a man to step back into your life. It's not about manipulation, it's about creating a situation in which he can clearly see the value you brought to his life. Men are drawn to women who command respect without begging for it. When you're constantly available, constantly trying to show how much you care, it can be perceived as a lack of self-respect. But when you pull away, you make it clear that your energy is valuable, that you're not willing to give it to anyone who doesn't recognize it. This absence doesn't mean disappearing completely or cutting off all communication in a way that creates unnecessary conflict. Instead, it's about recalibrating the energy between you and giving both of you the space you need to grow individually. The space you create serves as a subtle but undeniable message that you are not desperate for validation. You are not waiting around for someone to fill the void you've intentionally created. You've learned to embrace the power of your own presence, and in doing so, you invite them to reconsider their role in your life. Over time, as the silence deepens, the man begins to miss you not because of the absence itself, but because it forces him to confront the impact you had on his life. It's easy to overlook someone when they're always present. It's easy to take for granted the love, support, and companionship that someone offers when they are always accessible. But when you step away, you make him realize that he took your presence for granted. He starts to wonder why things aren't the same, why he doesn't feel the same sense of connection that he once did. And in that curiosity, he starts to reflect on his own actions, on his role in the relationship, and whether he values what you bring to his life. This process isn't just about creating space for him to miss you, it's about creating space for the relationship to evolve. Often, relationships can get stuck in patterns of codependency, routine, and complacency. The absence you create forces a break in the pattern, allowing both individuals to step back and reevaluate. It encourages growth, it fosters self-awareness, and it provides a space for new perspectives to emerge. Men often return after no contact, not just because they missed the companionship, but because in the silence they realize that their life without you is lacking something they didn't fully appreciate until it was gone. Furthermore, absence allows both parties the opportunity to reflect on their own needs, desires, and values. Sometimes it takes being apart to truly understand what someone means to you and whether they align with your life's direction. Men, like anyone else, are more likely to return to a woman who understands the value of distance and boundaries because that woman has demonstrated an unwavering commitment to herself. By stepping away, you've shown that your happiness doesn't depend on anyone's presence. You've shown that you will not be held hostage by the status of the relationship. This is deeply attractive as it shows self-assurance and independence, qualities that invite respect and admiration. When you release the need to control the outcome of a relationship and allow things to unfold naturally, you cultivate a sense of inner peace that radiates outward. The act of detachment isn't about abandoning someone, it's about stepping back to regain control over your own emotions and reactions. When you stop trying to force an outcome or manipulate a situation, you free yourself from emotional entanglements and unnecessary stress. This isn't a passive approach, it's an empowered stance that comes from knowing that your happiness doesn't depend on anyone else's approval or presence. Detachment is about letting go of expectations and allowing yourself to simply be without the need to demand or control. In relationships, we often invest so much energy into trying to make things work, trying to please the other person or trying to change them. We forget that we cannot control another person's actions, thoughts, or feelings. When you finally realize this truth and embrace detachment, you liberate yourself from the constant pressure of trying to make things happen. You begin to flow with life rather than resisting it. This doesn't mean you stop caring or stop being invested in the relationship. On the contrary, detachment allows you to care more deeply because it's no longer based on dependence. When you're attached to someone emotionally, it's easy to fall into a cycle of neediness and desperation. But when you detach, you begin to care for them from a place of abundance, not scarcity. You no longer seek their validation to feel worthy or loved. Instead, your worth is inherent, and any affection or attention they offer becomes a beautiful addition to the life you're already building. The beauty of detachment is that it puts you in a position of emotional strength. You stop reacting to every little thing that happens in the relationship. You no longer let small misunderstandings, temporary conflicts, or silence dictate your emotions. You become emotionally resilient. In doing so, you create a powerful aura around yourself, one that is both calming and attractive. Men, or anyone for that matter, are drawn to those who maintain emotional control and poise, especially in challenging circumstances. When they see that you aren't emotionally swayed by their actions or words, they begin to view you with a level of respect that they might not have afforded you when you were emotionally reactive. Detachment also gives you the space to rediscover your own passions and interests, the things that make you whole as an individual. Often in relationships, we become so consumed with the other person that we forget who we are outside of that dynamic. We may begin to lose ourselves in the process of constantly trying to meet their needs, make them happy, or keep the peace. But when you detach, you reconnect with yourself. You begin to invest in your own growth, your own dreams, and your own ambitions. You remember who you are at your core, independent of the relationship. This shift is magnetic. When you stop clinging to someone's attention or affection, you become more desirable. It's not that you're playing games or trying to be elusive. It's simply that you stop placing your emotional well-being in their hands. You are no longer chasing or begging for their attention. Instead, you become someone who commands respect without demanding it. This sense of self-sufficiency is incredibly attractive because it signals that you are whole on your own, and if someone wants to be a part of your life, they must meet you on equal footing. As you detach, you allow the other person the freedom to step back and reflect on their own feelings. When you are emotionally attached, you can sometimes become so enmeshed with the other person that there's little room for them to see the value in you objectively. But when you let go and create emotional space, you give them the chance to see you in a new light. They begin to recognize what they had with you, what they may have lost, and whether they are willing to fight to keep it. Detachment doesn't push them away, it gives them the space to make a choice about their feelings. It allows them to realize that relationships require effort from both sides. They may return not because you've manipulated them or made them feel guilty, but because they've had the time and space to miss you, to appreciate you, and to realize they want you back in their life. Moreover, detachment helps you maintain your own sense of peace and calm, even in the face of uncertainty. When you are detached, you aren't anxiously wondering what the other person is doing or worrying about their feelings. You are focused on your own life, your own growth, and your own happiness. This is empowering because you've learned that your happiness doesn't come from external sources. It doesn't come from another person's actions or approval. It comes from within you. You are the source of your own peace, your own joy, and your own fulfillment. This emotional detachment makes you not only more attractive to others, but also more grounded in yourself. It allows you to maintain balance and perspective, regardless of external circumstances. When men sense this strength, this emotional independence, they are often drawn to it. They realize that they can't control or manipulate someone who has such a strong sense of self. And in this realization, they are often compelled to return, not because you force them to, but because you become someone they respect, admire, and want to be around. When you start focusing on your own personal growth and development, you not only improve your own life, but also set an example of what it means to live with purpose and intention. People, especially men, are drawn to individuals who are on a journey of self-improvement, as this reflects a sense of ambition and a commitment to becoming the best version of oneself. The moment you begin to prioritize yourself and invest in your own growth, you show that you are not stagnating or waiting for someone else to validate your worth. This energy becomes magnetic and it creates an undeniable pull. Men, like everyone else, are attracted to someone who is emotionally independent and self-sufficient. When a person is committed to their own development, it sends the message that they don't need anyone else to complete them. Instead, they are focused on becoming a better, stronger, and more fulfilled version of themselves. This commitment to self-growth shows that you value yourself enough to put in the effort to improve your life, and this creates a ripple effect that reaches everyone around you. When a man sees that you are not waiting around for him to make you feel whole or fulfilled, it triggers a natural desire for him to step up and meet you at your level. One of the most powerful aspects of focusing on your own growth is that it helps you become more resilient. When you work on yourself, whether it's through learning new skills, taking care of your body, or cultivating a strong mental mindset, you develop a sense of inner strength that makes you less susceptible to external circumstances. You no longer rely on anyone else to lift you up or make you feel valued. Your self-worth comes from within, and this level of emotional independence is incredibly attractive. Men are drawn to women who can handle life's challenges with grace and composure, and when you focus on your personal growth, you naturally build this strength. As you continue to grow, you begin to attract the right people into your life. The energy you put out into the world becomes a reflection of the energy you receive. When you focus on yourself, you start to surround yourself with individuals who align with your values, goals, and ambitions. Men who recognize your growth will be more likely to respect and appreciate you, not only because of the way you've evolved, but also because they will recognize that you value yourself and your time. This kind of energy is powerful, and it creates an environment where mutual respect and appreciation can flourish. Additionally, focusing on your personal growth allows you to break free from old patterns and habits that may have kept you stuck in unhealthy relationships or situations. When you invest in yourself, you begin to see things from a new perspective. You become aware of the things that no longer serve you, and you gain the confidence to let them go. Whether it's letting go of toxic relationships, outdated beliefs, or negative thought patterns, the more you grow, the more you make room for new, healthier experiences. This shift in energy can be transformative, not only for yourself, but also for the dynamics of any relationship you choose to invest in. Men who see this transformation will often be drawn back to you because they sense that you have become someone different, someone who is more self-assured, more capable, and more confident in what they have to offer. Moreover, when you focus on your own growth, you begin to develop a greater sense of purpose. You're no longer just going through the motions of life, trying to fit into someone else's expectations or trying to make a relationship work at all costs. Instead, you are living with intention and clarity about what you want to achieve in life. This sense of purpose is contagious. It draws others toward you because people are naturally attracted to those who are passionate about their goals and who have a clear direction in life. Men, especially, are often drawn to women who have a strong sense of purpose because it signals that they are self-directed and capable of creating their own happiness. They are not looking for someone to complete them, but are instead looking for someone who shares their vision and values. The power of focusing on your own growth is that it shifts your entire mindset. It allows you to view the world through a lens of possibility rather than scarcity. When you focus on personal development, you begin to see challenges as opportunities for growth rather than obstacles to your happiness. This mindset shift is incredibly powerful as it changes the way you approach every aspect of your life, including relationships. When you stop seeing yourself as incomplete or needing validation from another person, you start to view your relationships as opportunities for mutual growth rather than something that will define your worth. As you grow, you also begin to attract men who are on the same level of growth and maturity. The more you invest in yourself, the more you become aligned with the type of partner you desire. Men who are committed to their own growth will be naturally drawn to you because they see that you understand the importance of continuous improvement. They recognize that you are not someone who will settle for less than you deserve, and this level of self-respect and confidence is incredibly appealing. When you prioritize your own growth, you create a magnetic energy that draws the right kind of people, those who value and appreciate the person you are becoming. In addition, focusing on personal growth enhances your sense of emotional intelligence. As you work on developing yourself, you become more in tune with your own emotions, needs, and desires. This emotional awareness allows you to communicate more effectively and build stronger, more meaningful connections with others. Men who are attracted to you will notice this emotional maturity and appreciate the way you express yourself. They will recognize that you are not only growing intellectually, but also emotionally, which deepens the connection and lays the foundation for a healthier, more balanced relationship. Ultimately, focusing on your personal growth creates a dynamic where you become a woman of substance, someone who is not defined by their relationship status, but by their ability to evolve, adapt, and thrive. This sense of personal power and independence is irresistible to men because it signals that you are not seeking external validation, but are instead fully aligned with your own purpose and journey. And as you continue to grow and evolve, you become a beacon of possibility for anyone who is fortunate enough to enter your life. When you begin to focus on creating a life that is full of meaning and fulfillment, one that isn't solely dependent on the presence or approval of another person, you start to shift the energy in your life. You stop waiting for external validation, and instead you create a reality where your happiness and sense of purpose come from within. This shift is incredibly powerful because it allows you to live authentically without the constant pressure of needing to please someone else or seeking approval to feel good about yourself. As you immerse yourself in your own passions, interests, and pursuits, you begin to attract people who resonate with that same energy. Men, in particular, are drawn to women who have their own purpose and ambition. When you're not constantly fixated on someone else's actions or approval, you exude a sense of confidence and independence that is both refreshing and magnetic. You stop being a passive participant in your own life and take full ownership of your story. This shift empowers you to build a life that is rich with your own passions, hobbies, and dreams without feeling like you need another person to fulfill those aspects of your life. Living with intention and pursuing personal growth doesn't mean you stop caring about the people around you, but rather it means that you stop relying on them to complete you. You recognize that you are already whole as you are, and any relationship or connection that you enter into should complement that, not define it. When you're truly content with your own life and actively building your own success, you no longer view relationships as something you need to survive, but rather as something you choose to enrich your life. This mindset is freeing because it takes the pressure off the other person and allows you to simply enjoy the connection without feeling desperate or anxious about the outcome. When you focus on yourself, you also start to build boundaries that protect your emotional energy. You begin to recognize your own worth and stop settling for situations or relationships that don't align with your values. This emotional awareness gives you the power to walk away from situations that drain you or diminish your self-worth. You begin to understand that it's okay to prioritize yourself, your peace of mind, and your well-being. And when you do this, you not only raise your standards, but also send out an energy that says, I am worthy of the best, and I will not settle for less. This self-respect becomes a foundation for healthier, more balanced relationships, and it sets the stage for men to recognize that you are not just another option, you are someone who knows what they deserve and will not tolerate anything less. Moreover, when you prioritize your own life and personal growth, you begin to develop emotional intelligence that strengthens your relationships. As you become more aware of your emotions, triggers, and desires, you learn how to communicate more effectively and navigate relationships with maturity and empathy. This ability to self-regulate your emotions and communicate openly and honestly allows you to create a deeper connection with others. Men are often drawn to women who are emotionally intelligent because it signals that they are capable of handling conflicts and challenges in a healthy and constructive way. Instead of reacting impulsively or with insecurity, you approach situations with a sense of calm and clarity, which helps build a stronger foundation for trust and respect. Additionally, when you focus on your own journey and growth, you create a sense of personal fulfillment that isn't dependent on the approval or attention of others. You learn to derive joy and satisfaction from your own accomplishments, from pursuing your passions, and from the inner peace that comes from living authentically. This sense of fulfillment is contagious. It inspires others to live with greater purpose and integrity. As you focus on creating a life of meaning, you also begin to inspire those around you to do the same. Men who are often seeking a partner who has their own life and aspirations will be drawn to this sense of fulfillment because it demonstrates that you are emotionally whole and content with who you are. They are no longer attracted to the person who seeks constant reassurance, but rather to someone who is already secure in their own identity. This shift in focus doesn't just make you more attractive to men, it also leads to a sense of inner peace that comes from knowing that your happiness isn't reliant on someone else's actions or feelings. When you stop trying to control or manipulate outcomes in relationships, you create a space for genuine connections to form. Men are drawn to women who are secure in themselves, who aren't afraid to show their true selves, and who don't need someone to complete them. By focusing on your own growth and happiness, you show them that you are whole and capable of having a fulfilling life, regardless of whether or not they are a part of it. Furthermore, this shift in energy encourages men to view you differently. When you stop chasing after someone's attention or approval, they often begin to see you in a new light. They realize that you are someone who is not just waiting around for them, but is actively building a life that is fulfilling on its own. This often triggers a feeling of respect and admiration, which can draw them back to you. They see that you are not desperate or needy, but are someone who knows what they want and is unafraid to pursue it. This new dynamic often causes them to reconsider their feelings and to realize that they are attracted to the strength and independence that you now exude. As you continue to focus on yourself, your own growth, and your own journey, you create an energy that is both empowering and magnetic. Men and people in general are naturally attracted to those who are living with purpose and passion. They are drawn to those who are not afraid to stand on their own, who are not waiting for someone else to validate their worth, and who are actively creating the life they desire. When you shift your focus away from chasing someone's approval and instead focus on your own growth and fulfillment, you set yourself up for a life of success, joy, and meaningful connections. When you stop chasing or seeking validation from others and begin to establish a strong sense of inner peace and self-assurance, something remarkable happens. You naturally start to raise your standards. This shift in your energy becomes a signal to the world, including to men, that you are not willing to accept anything less than what you deserve. You stop settling for situations, relationships, or behaviors that don't align with your true self and values. When you raise your standards, you make it clear that you are not available for mediocrity, and as a result, you start to attract individuals who meet those higher expectations. Men who may have once taken you for granted or not fully appreciated your worth begin to recognize that you are someone who will no longer tolerate being treated in ways that don't honor your value. This realization often sparks their desire to come back into your life as they begin to see the shift in your energy. When you stop chasing someone and start living for yourself, you demonstrate a strength that is irresistible. This newfound independence shows them that you don't need them to be happy, complete, or validated. You're already whole on your own, and this level of self-assurance is incredibly attractive. The more you raise your standards, the more you create space for meaningful connections that are built on mutual respect and shared values. Men who come back to you after a period of no contact often do so because they see that you are no longer the person they once knew. They recognize that you have evolved into someone who is not only self-sufficient, but who also has high expectations for how others should treat you. This shift sends a powerful message. You are someone who values your time, your energy, and your emotions, and you won't settle for less than the best. As you raise your standards, you also become more selective about who you allow into your life. You stop compromising on what matters to you and start setting boundaries that protect your emotional and mental well-being. This process is empowering because it allows you to take control of the relationships you choose to invest in. You no longer feel the need to be in a relationship for the sake of it or to force a connection that isn't fulfilling. Instead, you create a space where only people who are aligned with your values and aspirations can enter. This selectivity elevates your life in ways that you may not have anticipated as you begin to attract partners who are emotionally mature, respectful, and supportive of your goals. Men who return after a period of no contact often do so because they feel the absence of the energy that once was there. They realize that they took you for granted, and now that you have raised your standards, they understand that they will need to meet your expectations if they want to be a part of your life again. The shift in your energy is palpable. Men can sense when you are no longer desperate for their attention or approval. This emotional shift is what often draws them back in. They are intrigued by the change in you, the new confidence, and the boundaries you have established for yourself. Raising your standards doesn't just apply to how you expect to be treated by others, it also applies to how you treat yourself. When you start to prioritize your own needs, goals, and well-being, you become a living example of what it means to love and respect oneself. This shift is contagious. Men, especially those who have seen you in a different light, begin to realize that your standards reflect the respect you have for yourself. It becomes clear that you are someone who will not tolerate emotional neglect, dishonesty, or inconsistency. Instead, you have learned to value your own worth enough to walk away from relationships that do not add value to your life. This self-respect creates a magnetic energy that draws men who are genuinely interested in building something meaningful. As you continue to raise your standards, you also begin to recognize your own personal growth and the importance of protecting your peace. You understand that your time and energy are precious resources, and you are no longer willing to give them to anyone who isn't worthy of your attention. This understanding leads you to set boundaries that protect your emotional health and create space for the right relationships to flourish. When you raise your standards, you become clear about what you need and what you won't tolerate. You no longer waste time on relationships that drain you or leave you feeling unappreciated. Instead, you make room for connections that are built on mutual respect, trust, and a shared desire for growth. Men who return to you after no contact often do so because they see that you have raised the bar. They are drawn to the energy of someone who is not afraid to stand up for themselves, who has clear expectations for how they should be treated, and who isn't afraid to walk away from anything that doesn't meet those expectations. This shift in your energy challenges them to rise to the occasion. They realize that you are no longer available to settle for less than you deserve, and this new dynamic forces them to reflect on their own behavior and actions. When you raise your standards, you also become more aligned with your own desires and needs. You gain a deeper understanding of what you want from a relationship and what kind of person you want to build a future with. This clarity empowers you to make decisions that support your long-term happiness rather than settling for short-term gratification. Men who are serious about being a part of your life will recognize this clarity and will be motivated to step up and meet the new expectations you have set. They see that you are no longer available for anything that doesn't align with your vision for the future, and this realization often leads them to return with the hope that they can prove themselves worthy of your time and energy. In summary, when you raise your standards, you make it clear to the world, including to men, that you are someone who knows their worth and will not settle for less than they deserve. This shift in energy not only makes you more attractive, but also draws people who align with your values and aspirations. Men who return after a period of no contact do so because they recognize that you have evolved into someone who is confident, self-sufficient, and unwilling to compromise on what you want from a relationship. Your energy becomes magnetic, and they are drawn to it because it challenges them to rise to meet your new higher standards. When you stop chasing or seeking external validation, something powerful begins to happen in your life. You start to attract genuine connections and people who are aligned with your energy. This shift happens because when you are no longer desperate or needy, you become a magnetic force that pulls people toward you, especially those who appreciate and understand your value. Men in particular are drawn to women who aren't constantly seeking reassurance or approval. When you stop pursuing someone's attention and allow them to come to you, you create a space that is not only emotionally healthy, but also empowering. What happens in this space is that men start to see you in a completely different light. You no longer appear as someone who is eager or available to meet every need and demand placed upon you. Instead, you become someone with boundaries, someone who has a life full of purpose, and someone who doesn't need another person to feel complete. This transformation in how you carry yourself is magnetic because it signals to others that you are self-sufficient and emotionally whole, which makes you more intriguing and desirable. This shift also speaks volumes about your emotional intelligence. You start to create an inner strength that no longer requires external sources of validation to feel good about yourself. When you are secure in who you are, you radiate confidence. This confidence is not loud or boastful, but quiet and rooted in a sense of self-awareness. People, particularly men, can sense this calm assurance. They recognize that you are someone who doesn't just exist in relationships to fill a void or to seek approval. Instead, you are someone who brings value to a relationship, and this energy makes you a rare and attractive individual. When you stop seeking validation, you also stop allowing others to define your worth. You create a solid foundation where your value is determined by your own standards and not by someone else's opinion. This self-definition is incredibly powerful because it places the control back in your hands. You are no longer subject to the whims and fluctuations of someone else's mood or behavior. You can move through life with a deep sense of security because your worth is inherent. This sense of security is magnetic, and it encourages others, especially men, to return to you after a period of no contact because they can sense that you are no longer dependent on them for validation. In fact, when you stop chasing, you stop playing the same games that often lead to manipulation or unhealthy dynamics in relationships. There is no longer a need to try and force someone to stay or to constantly prove your worth. Instead, you simply allow things to unfold naturally. Men who may have previously felt pressure or unsure of your intentions now feel a sense of relief and ease around you. They understand that there is no agenda or expectation. You are simply living your life with purpose and allowing things to fall into place as they will. This shift creates a sense of comfort and attraction, and it encourages men to reflect on the relationship in a more positive and respectful light. The beauty of this transformation is that it is not about playing games or trying to manipulate someone's feelings. It is about becoming someone who knows their value and who is willing to walk away from anything that does not align with their desires and goals. This kind of energy is not something that can be faked or forced. It comes from a place of genuine self-love and acceptance. When men return to you after no contact, it's often because they recognize this shift in your energy. They realize that you are no longer the person they knew, someone who was available at any moment or who chased after their affection. Instead, you are someone who lives with integrity and purpose, and this transformation sparks their admiration. Furthermore, when you stop chasing, you also stop putting pressure on the relationship to fill a need. Relationships, whether they are romantic or otherwise, thrive when both individuals come together as whole people, not as people seeking to fill empty spaces. When you focus on your own growth, passions, and goals, you create a life that is complete on its own, and any relationship that comes into your life only serves to enhance that. This approach shifts the dynamic in your favor because it signals that you are emotionally healthy and independent, rather than seeking another person to define your happiness. Men who often crave emotional stability and independence in a partner are naturally drawn to this energy. They are attracted to women who have their own lives, who are not desperate for their time or attention, and who can hold their own emotionally. This magnetic pull becomes stronger when you stop chasing and instead focus on your own growth. Men, seeing your newfound independence, are often drawn to return because they realize that you are someone who brings something real and valuable to the table, not someone who is simply hoping to be validated by them. Moreover, when you stop chasing, you also stop overinvesting emotionally in people who aren't giving back in equal measure. This balance of emotional energy helps you preserve your peace and maintain your mental well-being. The result is that you start to attract relationships that are more balanced and reciprocal. Instead of feeling drained, you feel energized by the connections you have because they are based on mutual respect and shared values. Men who return after no contact often do so because they recognize the healthy emotional environment you now create, and they are eager to be a part of it. As you continue to embrace this new mindset, the effects ripple out into every area of your life. You stop seeking approval in your career, your friendships, and even within yourself. You begin to operate from a place of abundance rather than scarcity. You realize that you have the power to create the life you want, independent of anyone else's input. This abundance mentality is incredibly attractive to men because it signals that you are not desperate or seeking something from them. Rather, you are simply allowing the right people to show up in your life naturally. Men who return to you after no contact are often intrigued by this shift in your energy. They see that you no longer need them to complete your life. Instead, you are already whole, and they are returning because they recognize that you are someone they can build something meaningful with. The space you've created in your life by not chasing has allowed them the freedom to come back with the intention of contributing to your happiness and growth, rather than trying to take something from you. They recognize that you are not someone who will tolerate emotional imbalance, and that is why they are eager to reconnect and explore what could happen between the two of you.